The last, well, there's two more on here. 8 is laughter. I find we don't laugh enough in our culture. A great study, Norman Cousins was a medical doctor diagnosed with cancer in New York City. He was at Sloan Kettering. They said, okay, you have terminal cancer. Your bill here every day is going to be $4,000 to $5,000. And he figured, you just told me I'm going to die. I don't want to be in the hospital. I'm going to go next door to the Ritz-Carlton. They're only charging me $500 a night there. And he rented a bunch of funny movies and ate whatever, this great food that he wanted to eat. And, he's still alive today. So he was given terminal cancer. I'm not saying that's the only, he was doing high-dose vitamin C and other things. But he really attributed and did a lot of research then on how laughter affects your immune system. And it actually does, it increases your immune system. So, you might want to have the joke-telling hour at the office or something like that.
We do. Yeah.
Good. You got a good joke for us maybe at the end today. Dr. Nye is bringing in a preceptor with one of the requirements is that they have to make them laugh twice a day. So it's good. It is good medicine. We try to laugh a ton up in our office, even in dire situations of, we're dealing with a lot of doom and gloom. And so it is good. It's good health to laugh. And then the granddaddy here is vitamin D. So there is so much. It was in vogue maybe last year. We're hearing less and less about vitamin D because we're on to the next great flavor of the month. But vitamin D is such an important player for your health and your immune system. It's part of the general screen that we do with folks in our office. So, you want to get tested. You want to know what your blood level is, especially living in the Northwest. You want to be between 50 and 80. That's nanograms per deciliter. There are, so major factor in the pathology of at least 17 varieties of cancer, as well as heart disease, stroke, hypertension, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, depression, chronic pain, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, muscle weakness, muscle wasting, birth defects, periodontal disease, and more. So, it's a major player. In particular, vitamin D is, it activates natural killer cells of your immune system. And so it's, Canada, just a case in point as to how sick our society is, Canada, as a public health policy, is actually researching vitamin D and how that benefits their population and their immune system. A pretty sane policy if you get a cheap vitamin to help people with cold and flu season and other diseases. There's a vitamin D council. They can't even get in the door to talk to the Centers for Disease Control, let alone get a research study set up to even look at it. So, my prevention, you'll see there's some critics of it saying, well, the jury's still out. We don't know. Are you creating calcinosis of the veins and creating more cardiovascular disease? Over the last 8 years, I've been running, cardiovascular panels on people that I've had on high-dose vitamin D, and we're not seeing any changes in their blood chemistries. We're not seeing any changes on their screening when we look at their cardiovascular, in their cardiovascular occlusion of their vessels. So I think, we're doing a disservice if you don't take vitamin D or get your levels checked and see specifically there. One general recommendation for that is about 1,000 IUs per 25 pounds of body weight. So if you weighed 100 pounds, it would be 4,000 IUs a day. Again, that's a general rule. General rules are not so great for specifics. So I put that out there hesitantly. Just, I would say, go off of what your vitamin D level is in your blood. That's the most specific recommendation that we can make for you. One note on vitamin D, and that was what I was saying this week, I've been increasing my vitamin D intake as I get exposed more because it really does have that function of that it can really help your immune system just be really efficient. So again, I like that analogy of the desert and dust. As you're exposed to more and more virus, or somebody's coughing next to you, or it's bad in the office environment, right? So you got somebody that thinks, well, I'm not that sick, I got to go in. They're coughing, they're touching the phone, they're using the keyboard, cough everywhere. Well, that's a public health nightmare. right? We tell people don't come in if you're sick because you're going to be exposing, at least in our office, really immunocompromised individuals with, end-of-life cancer care. We don't want them getting the flu virus or a bug from our staff. So you're not doing anybody a service coming in sick. Work from home if you need to work. There's plenty to do online. So you can increase your dose of vitamin D, I guess is where I was going with that. So now what I would like to do is just open it up for questions here in our last 8 minutes together. Yes?
Do you have an opinion on, I know like homeopathic, like echinacea or is that astragalus?
Oh, astragalus. Yeah, so
people recommend that. But
echinacea, it's interesting because that one got, there was a misinterpreted German study. And it showed after 6 weeks of use of echinacea, there was no response afterwards. Well, they misinterpreted it because what the caption read underneath the diagram was, we stopped giving echinacea at this point. And so echinacea, and actually that's where I get my analogy of the changing your oil, is from Herbal Ed Smith, who owns Herb Farm. He uses that analogy a lot. In particular with echinacea, you can, as you're getting ill, you have to increase the dose of the echinacea. And that's,
you need to be taking it already,
you got to be taking it more frequently. So, if the bottle says 2 to 4 dropperfuls a day, I would suggest taking it every 2 hours. There's one that I swear by for me personally. It's called EHB, Echinacea hydrastis berberin. It's got vitamin A, and garlic, and zinc, and other immuno support in there. I'll take 2 to 3 caps. In fact, I have them in my pocket today. Every 2 to 3 hours, if I feel like, I have a little bit of scratch in my throat, I don't want to get sick, I'm going to just boost my immune system up. So between the vitamin D, rest, water, and that, it tends to help me get through cold and flu season.
That's the homeopathic side.
It's actually not a homeopathic. This is actually herbal. It's full herb. Yeah. Homeopathic echinacea, I have not used it so frequently. There's the, oxylokinum, or however you pronounce that thing. For flu remedy, some of my colleagues really swear by it. Again, I don't really find the need for it if I'm doing all of this other stuff with my patients. So echinacea, there was another one in there that you asked about?
I think, well,
astragalus.
Yeah, also they say that when you go to new seasons or whatever, they want to say that there's something you should be taking as you're coming down with it, and then once you have it to try to kick it, that shouldn't necessarily be the same thing. Like echinacea is maybe sort of before, but then once you have it,
So it's the astragalus in particular that's a preventative, because then in Chinese medicine there's this concept you don't want to lock the thief in with the treasures, and astragalus boosts your wei qi or protective qi layer, and so that's why it is used as a preventative. But if you take it when you're sick, you basically lock the virus in, and that's not great. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about vitamin D, particularly the supplements, the type of vitamin D, like when you get vitamin D in milk, how is
right.
it not
Got it. Yeah.
way?
So that's vitamin D2.
Yeah.
And it's a phytochemical, and it's not active. That's also the prescription that they'll give folks that are deficient in vitamin D is D2. They'll do 50,000 IUs once a week, which is a big dose, but it's the wrong variety of vitamin D. Vitamin D is it should always be D3. That's the active form of D. You also get that from sunlight, but even on a sunny day in the fall in the Northwest, you're not getting any vitamin D. I don't care what anybody says, you're not. You have to be at the equator at noon on the solstice, basically. I mean, in the tropics, you're getting more vitamin D because you're just close to the sun. So yeah, definitely D3 is the way to go. It's the more active form. Yeah.
what are for food allergies, what are some foods that you find are particularly inflammatory that you should avoid?
Well, I mean, it's surprisingly different for everybody. So it's not a general recommendation on food. I mean, the ones that we know that you should stay away from are the white death sugar, simple carbohydrates, alcohol. The nightshades tend to be biggies. But occasionally we're seeing soy and egg and dairy, wheat. Yeah, kind of that. Nightshades, potatoes, peppers, eggplant, tomatoes.